What's going on, everybody? It's Nick Kosko with On 3 with you. We have an exclusive conversation today with NFL legend Mark Schlereth. Mark, thanks for joining me, man, ahead of the Super Bowl. I know you're here for a reason, so before we dive into some big NFL news coming up, what brings you here today ahead of the big game?
Yeah, well, it's always about preparing for the big game, right? To be at home and to do the things and do it right when you have family and friends over. And it starts with the television set. LG OLED TVs, award-winning 65-inch OLED C2 series, best picture quality, realistic colors, sharp images, no zero blurring on fast motion. So it's the best way to watch your sports, your gaming, your movies from 42 inches to 97 inches. They always say, go big or go home. I say, go big and stay home with a great TV from LG, LG.com for more information. And then got to have great snacks, varieties of spice of life. Variety starts with Farm Rich. Tons of snacks and appetizers found in the freezer section case of your local grocer. Something for everybody. The snackuterie board I have in front of me. You got cauliflower bites. You got jalapeno poppers. You got mozzarella sticks, meatballs, you name it. You can find out more at farmrich.com. And then the biggest nightmare is losing power. It happened to me when I was a kid watching the Super Bowl. So Geniverse Home Power, the 2 Pro solar generator, safe to use indoors, no fumes, no noise, no maintenance, rechargeable solar panels, powerful enough to run 99% of your home appliances, the fridge, the fans, the heaters, most importantly, the television set if you do lose power. Geniverse.com for more information.
Awesome stuff, Mark. All right, so we have to dive before we even get into the Super Bowl, which obviously everyone's going to be talking about over the next week and a half with the Eagles and the Chiefs. But Tom Brady announced his retirement today on social media. Kind of came out of nowhere, but almost like it was expected. What was your initial reaction to Brady saying, you know what, this is it for me, I'm going to hang it up now?
Yeah, I was kind of surprised. I thought he would play for, like, he's just been so good for so long, and I have so much respect for what he's done throughout the course of his career. It's been an honor and pleasure to cover him. And I always say about him, the thing that amazes me is he never seemed to get sated by his success. He just always was grinding, always working, always trying to get better. And so I was kind of surprised that he did decide to retire. But hey, man, like I said, it was an honor to cover him, man. It was an honor to watch him play, and nobody's ever done it better.
Now, obviously, there were reports that he was basically determining whether he would come back and play for Tampa Bay or step away. There were rumors, and everyone was trying to say, you know what, maybe he'll go to San Francisco. It's his childhood team. They're set up for a Super Bowl run. Were you a little surprised now? I mean, other than his retirement, were you surprised that he was basically contemplating Tampa Bay or retirement and not even San Francisco at this point?
Yeah, I mean, I never say never. You never know. He may be able to be coaxed out of retirement. He already was coaxed out of retirement one time, for the 3-year run in Tampa. So I'll never say never. And I'll miss watching him perform. I'll miss having production meetings with him because he is he is just a football dude through and through. So he's so much fun to talk to, so much fun, just to talk about football with and life with. So I just have, like I said, nothing but the utmost respect for him. And I'm glad that he's chosen to walk away from the game and not get forced out like the rest of us get forced out. But I'd love to see him come back too. So I always hold out a little bit of hope.
Maybe we will see him one day, or maybe that is truly it. And what a career for Tom Brady. So the other big news off the field was Sean Payton. Obviously, he is going to become the new Denver Broncos head coach after 1 year away from the game. Obviously, there's draft pick competition as well, but everyone's pointing to this move as, you know what, can Sean Payton actually fix Russell Wilson based on what we saw on the field in 2022? What were your initial impressions of Sean Payton saying, you know what, that's the job I want, and the Broncos coming to that decision to hire Sean Payton out of his brief retirement?
Yeah, I think it's great for the Denver Broncos in building a culture and building a football team and putting players in a position to have success. And I've talked to Sean Payton a bunch over the course of the years. I actually consulted for the Saints when Sean Payton was the coach there. And one thing that he always says, it's not just about attacking the weakness of your opponent, but it's also mitigating your own weaknesses and understanding what players can and can't do. Put a player in a position to fail. Don't be surprised when he fails. You put him there. And so you look at the last couple of games of the season, when they changed coaches in Denver and they went back to doing some of the things that they were successful with in Seattle all those years. Now, Russell Wilson actually played well during the last couple of games of the season. So I don't think there's any question, in the right system with the right voice in his head, that Russell Wilson can get back to playing kind of, Pro Bowl caliber quarterback. And I don't think there's anybody better in the league than Sean Payton at in putting you in those positions.
One more for you on the coaching front. It's more of a combined question here down in the state of Texas. So you have D'Amico Ryans going from the defensive coordinator spot from San Fran going down to the Houston Texans, the team that initially drafted him when he played linebacker in the league. And obviously, the Dallas Cowboys making a change with Kellen Moore no longer the offensive coordinator. It seems like Mike McCarthy is going to be that primary play caller moving forward. So what are your takeaways from those two moves? I mean, it looks like Ryans has a rebuilding job, and McCarthy is basically putting it all on him for 2023 for him and Dak Prescott.
Yeah, well, the one thing about McCarthy, is he's got the ability to turn over the defense and almost have Dan Quinn be the head coach of the defense. So that's one less thing that he's really got to pay attention to or worry about. And then, as the offensive play caller, I mean, he did that forever in Green Bay during his time there. So, he's got his own thoughts, obviously, and we'll see how it works out. I mean, that always is a lot of responsibility, because I think sometimes you can get so buried in the play sheet that you lose sight of other things that go on during the course of a game. And so I never think that's the right decision, but we'll see. There's some guys who do it well, and sometimes it takes away from being the overall kind of CEO of the football team. So we'll see how that works. And as far as D'Amico Ryans is concerned, I mean, you want to talk about a meteoric rise from a guy that came in 2017, was a quality control guy, to a linebacker coach, to a D coordinator, and now to the head coach in 5 years. Absolutely amazing. There's no question about his leadership. There's no question about his enthusiasm. But he does have that rebuilding project, although he does have 4 first-round draft picks in the first 2 years of his tenure there in Houston. So, he's got some opportunity to make some changes there, but there's a lot of work to be done in Houston, and we'll see if he's up to the challenge. I will say this. There's nobody better from the standpoint of running an organization than Kyle Shanahan, and what he's learned from Kyle Shanahan, and ultimately Mike Shanahan, who has helped Kyle throughout that process. So he's got a lot of great mentors, and he's been exposed to the right way to do things through San Francisco and the 49ers. So anyhow, I'm excited for D'Amico Ryans, because he's a great guy and he's a great football coach.
Certainly sounds like the Houston Texans struck big with the hire of D'Amico Ryans. So now on the actual Super Bowl itself, the Eagles and the Chiefs were winners over championship weekend. They meet up in the game in about a week and a half now. There's a bunch of storylines. Obviously, you have the Andy Reid connection with the Philadelphia Eagles. You have the quarterback matchup between Jalen Hurts and Patrick Mahomes. So coming off of that, I mean, what are your initial impressions of this game before we even talk about the quarterbacks? I mean, this seems like this is probably the best matchup we could have gotten on paper out of those final 4 teams that were on championship weekend.
Yeah, it's the first. I mean, it's a matchup of the 2 best records in football, 14-3 versus 14-3. So the 2 best football teams in the league. And so again, on paper, like I always say, if the games were played on paper, I'd spend a lot less time on an operating table. So you just never know how things are going to work out. But, we talk about the quarterbacks, and the quarterbacks have been great all year. And Patrick Mahomes will probably be the MVP. And frankly, Jalen Hurts probably could have been the MVP had he not gotten injured and missed the last, 3 or 4 games of the season. He played the last game of the season, but he missed, several. He missed essentially 3 games. So that's one of the things that you look at and you see how it develops. But to me, it's all about lines of scrimmage and how you win lines of scrimmage. And I think there is no better line of scrimmage play than that of the Philadelphia Eagles, both defensively and offensively. And offensively, they set a tone. They've got the ability to be big and strong, also fast and athletic, so they can run the downhill run game, really just kind of absolutely thunder punch you in the teeth, run downhill, and then get to the edge of the defense, capture the perimeter of the defense with their speed, their pin pull game, their ability to pull their center and get to the edge. They're incredible with that stuff. The quarterback run game, I think it's going to be really hard for the Kansas City Chiefs to contend with their running game and all the play action stuff that comes out after that, the RPO game. So I really like Philadelphia. I think the Philadelphia Eagles are just a better football team overall. But of course, you're talking about the best quarterback in the National Football League in Patrick Mahomes, and he's got a couple of weeks to get healthy with that ankle injury. Should be a heck of a matchup.
Offensive line is obviously your expertise. I'm fascinated how you broke down the Eagles' offensive line, and I'm curious to see or your opinion on this. 5 years ago, this is a team that won the Super Bowl based on tremendous line of scrimmage play. And obviously, they put together a magical run, the Eagles did. But this offensive line is older, but they're still playing at a very high level. You look at Jason Kelce, Lane Johnson, both guys getting up there in age, probably both future Hall of Famers. How do those guys maintain that success over the last 5 years, knowing that 5 years ago they could have walked away from the game, and now this time it's like, how do you guys still do this, particularly with Lane Johnson with that abdomen injury?
Yeah, well, which is amazing because you look at what Lane Johnson's been able to do, and he's going to have off-season surgery to repair that groin abdomen area, and yet he is still playing at an exceptionally high level. And we all marvel at Patrick Mahomes, but Lane Johnson, what he's doing is phenomenal. And then the athleticism, the power and the athleticism of Jason Kelce. I think he came in to the University of Cincinnati, like he was recruited, I believe, as a running back, or he played running back in high school. So the guy is an exceptional athlete. He's fun to watch. But I think one of the big things that Philadelphia has done, you got to give a lot of credit to Howie Roseman, they didn't stop developing offensive linemen. They didn't just go, oh, we're really good, we're going to be fine. They drafted Landon Dickerson. They drafted a backup to take over for when Jason Kelce is done. They developed a Jordan Mailata. So they understood that's the strength of my football team, and we're going to keep drafting players and keep basically developing those guys under Jeff Stotland, who is their offensive coach, their offensive line coach, and they just do a phenomenal job of developing those guys and play at a very high level.
Obviously, we're still a little bit ways away from the game, Mark, and I'll get one more for you before I get you out of here. Mark Schlereth with me on three. It's interesting. Look at these coaches. Andy Reid, he's a future Hall of Fame coach. He finally won the big one with Kansas City a couple of years ago. Nick Sirianni, only in his second year with the Eagles, and they went from a team that, wow, are they going to regret this hire when they were 2-5 last year? Now they can barely lose at this point. So who has more pressure on them right now? Reid already has one. Now, Nick Sirianni does not have one, and we know how hard it is to even just get to the Super Bowl. But I feel like the conversation can go either way leading up to this game. Well, Andy Reid, he needs that second one, or Nick Sirianni, he needs this one before he may never get a chance at it. Who would you say has more pressure on them going into the big game on Super Bowl 57?
Well, I mean, I would probably put Andy Reid as the guy, even though he's won, and even though to me he's an automatic, Hall of Famer from a coach standpoint. But you've got the MVP of the league probably in Patrick Mahomes. You've got what I think myself and many think is the building of a dynasty, right? We're going to 3 championship games in the last 4 years. But ultimately, if you go to 3 and 4 years and you only won one of them, people always look at the negative aspect of not being able to finish, and especially when you have the best quarterback in football. So like that's always one of those things that you have to look at. But hey, listen, man, it should be a great matchup, and and I give a ton of just kudos to Nick Sirianni, because think about he was calling plays. They're 2-5, and he says, "Screw it, I'm not going to do this anymore. I'm going to turn over the play calling to our offensive coordinator, and I'm going to be more more from a CEO standard." From that coach principle. And so I just think it's amazing to be able to give away those things and say, hey man, I'm not going to worry about that. I don't care about the ego, excuse me. I just want to go out and be the best football coach I can be. And that to me was amazing what he able to do over the last two seasons.
Appreciate the time as always, Mark. Mark Schlereth with me on 3 Sports. Hopefully you enjoy the big game. Hopefully I enjoy the big game. I mean, actually, as I'll keep it down low, but as an Eagle fan, hopefully it's a big day for me as well on that Sunday. Mark, I appreciate the time as always, my man.
My pleasure. Take care.